Welcome to another Good Dads podcast. I am Jay Fotsch alongside our host today, Jason Hynson, and you do the Intentional Dad. You are a guest today, but you also help host as well. So explain, not only to all of us, but especially Brian Mattson, who is our guest today, where you come from when it comes to Intentional Dad.
Yeah, so being an intentional dad is really like more of like just being present, being aware, like stepping in intentionally, knowing that like you're kind of driven by your intentionality. So if I show up early, if I'm there, I think a lot of it's just about being present.
Doing what you say.
Yeah, doing what you say.
With some actions.
Yes.
Instead of just talking about it.
Yeah.
Actually.
Consistently being there, yeah.
Which seems like, I mean, if you just put it that way, it seems like a pretty common sense, basic, but that's the hard part sometimes.
I
the
think
action
it
is the hard part.
Yep.
It's a lot easier for us to sit in here and talk on a podcast about action.
Yeah.
But if we're not doing it, then it really
say it's
doesn't
like
count.
9:30 and you're tired.
Yes.
Like, I'm just going to lay here on the couch.
Yeah, we talked about that one. Like the deepest conversations our kids are going to have are always after I want to go to bed.
Or you're half asleep.
Oh,
in the middle
10
of the
o'clock.
night.
Wait, what? I'm stuck in the laundry room, deep conversation, pouring out his heart. And I'm like, all right, if I miss this, I miss a chance speaking to the kids.
I may have had a better answer at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, we'll go with
I
it.
do the best that I can.
Yep.
So today we'll be talking about creating a safe space for honest conversation. So it kind of leads into us, and we'll start with you, Jason, as we talk about honesty, a two-way street. Expect honesty and practice it as a family. So kind of lead with that, and then
I'll jump into this story. Like being able to say I was wrong, right? I think like
to your kids,
as a
dad, right?
So I have a 19-year-old. I have a almost 4-year-old. Tomorrow she'll be 4. But like I have all these kids in these wide ranges. But I remember like at one point I was having a discussion with my oldest son, and then I realized it didn't end well. I didn't like it. And so I went up, and I like on a scale from me being right and him being wrong, I'm right 90%, but there's probably 10% where I needed to apologize. So I went up and I apologized for the 10%. Did he say, "Oh, Dad, that's great. Here, you're right. I was wrong"? No, he said nothing. He was probably still mad, but I wanted to make sure the door was open for that next conversation. Yeah. So, and that was being intentional, but also like, oh gosh, yeah, I swallowed my shoe first.
So why is that so important for you to actually, because a lot of, and I know we've talked about it before, kind of our generation of parents and grandparents, they were never wrong. I don't know about you guys, but there was no one older than me in my family that was wrong.
Oh,
especially,
and even if they were, you weren't at liberty to point that out.
Nope. And they're not going to tell you that they were. So why is that so important?
You know, my kids are 4 and 6, almost 7, and like what Jason said, you want to make sure that door is open because, the more times that door gets shut incrementally, that's going to be a big deal a decade later. Like, oh, you know what? My dad, shut me down again and again, or he was the one that was right. I don't want that to be the last word in whatever the conversation is. And so the idea that there is either light in the doorway or the door hasn't been shut at all because you've been big enough as a dad to say, hey, you know what? That was on me. I'm sorry about that. Man, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And then also, does that also, show your kid that it's all right whenever you say, hey, you are wrong. Remember like how I was wrong and I told you and I admitted it. So it's almost kind of like, as we talk about, is they're always watching us.
Yeah.
That this is something that we can show them that it's okay for them to be wrong, and we can talk about it as well.
Yeah. But you're setting an example.
Yeah.
Right. You're leading by what you do.
Yeah. For sure. I was, I'm a pastor. And so when I'll say, we have a really short prayer that I do with my kids because they just like, no, let's just be quiet and go to sleep. But we always try to end with, and thanks for Jesus who showed us how to love everyone. And like, someone has already showed us what to do. And if I model the example and the behavior that I'm hoping that my kids grow into, that's what I want to leave them with. That I'm modeling that humility or being big enough to say I was wrong is a big deal.
Let me rewind here. Your kids go right to bed? I'm sorry.
I'll tell you what.
I mean, you do a short prayer and they go, what is that the magic? You do a short prayer and they just go to bed?
The routine is about 2 hours.
Okay.
That's
I was going to say.
There's also the nighttime snack, the moment you say brush teeth, wait, I'm hungry, followed by the fight to get in the bathroom to brush teeth, followed by the book, followed by the second book, right?
Well, it's so funny because my 4.5-year-old is now to the point where we're trying to drop the afternoon nap, which, as a parent, you do not want to get rid of that. That is an hour and a half of freedom and joy like you've never known. And she is just to the point now where it was taking her sometimes like an hour or an hour and a half of just being in bed in the dark, but, having one of us come in and out or lay with her for a while.
Yep.
And now she's dropping the nap, the bedtime to go to sleep has gotten much shorter. We're talking like 5 minutes and she is out. But going up the stairs to start that nighttime routine is, I can't walk because I'm tired.
Right.
Just 30 minutes of that. And you're like,
Yeah.
That's good.
Or like my stomach hurts, so I think I need to either lay with you guys on the couch or sleep in your bed. I'm like, well, how is either one of those going to make your stomach feel better? Well, it just is. And I'm like, well, your stomach could feel better upstairs, though, like in your room. That'd be a good spot.
It's comfort.
good luck with that, Jay.
It doesn't work. I trust
No.
you. Okay, so we're talking about a safe space for honest conversations. And, we talk about different topics that we have as a family, and no topic is off limits. And talking about the meaning of words. So how do you kind of set that one? And, it's maybe a topic, and when we've talked about this, you led with it of just being very tired and being caught off guard or whatever.
Sure.
But, it could be a topic that is, very serious, but you need to make sure that you have that safe space for your kids and family.
Yeah. I think Tiffany, my wife, Tiffany, and I think our biggest conversation is around that. Like, we have open and honest conversations, and we share everything together, and then we encourage our kids to do the same. So then you're creating that sort of cone of trust or whatever. I don't know. But I think that's where it starts. So if nothing's off limits for us, and nothing's off limits with our kids, and and like we help them with things like devices and other things that can be very tension filled, like, well, all my friends are, right? And then you got to wade through those. So and I mean, it might be hard. Some of it could be a little bit more serious too, that you're not, but in the long run, it's almost kind of like pulling off a Band-Aid. You're like, okay, well, I'd rather talk about them and them be able to talk to me about, major things in life, and have a safe space instead of not talking about it. It's almost kind of like, let's wait for that conversation. But you're like, okay, well, maybe we do need to have it today.
I remember, before we had kids, I was talking to a good friend of mine who had, at the time, I think his daughter was 12. And he said something that just, as soon as he said it, I filed it away for like future parenting advice. And he said, when my daughter comes to me with real questions, that lets me know that she's old enough for a real answer. And it doesn't mean you have to give all of the answer, but you need to give them, you need to be as honest as you can to create that sense of this is an open space. But they don't need to know every single detail about what the big scary world is like. Right. But if they're asking you really tough questions, that probably means they know that there's bigger answers out there than just because. Yeah. Right. And so to actually honor them and respect them enough to give them a little bit of truth and talk, like, put your big girl pants on and your dad pants on, and let's have a conversation. Yeah. You don't need to go all the way A to Z, but you need to do something to show that, like, I'm taking this seriously too.
Sure.
So have either one of you dads had where you want to go just because I said so?
Yes.
Has there been a situation where you
two nights ago?
No, 2 nights. It's fresh.
We were laying in bed, and my 6.5-year-old, almost 7-year-old, he goes, so when Dorothy was in mommy's belly, how did she get out? And I was like, just when the doctors let us know that things are ready. And he's like, so, and I was like, you know what? How was that book you finished with your mom? Was that a good book? Shift. We need to get off this subject because I don't know how to address this. Just because when the time is right, the baby comes out.
The baby comes. There was a stork. I don't know. Like,
and I was like, who's he hearing from at school about what's happening when babies come out? Or he's just curious. I was just like, I'm not prepared to go here right now. I haven't done enough background research on how do I talk to a 6-year-old about the birth scenario.
So that does happen. There are some times where you're like, you just because.
Yeah.
You know?
I think even in that though, but creating that space like, hey, let's keep that dialogue open. Like, cause you're not shutting down. You're just pausing it. Maybe put a pin in it for later. You know, we'll come back to that. But then, hey, remember when you asked me about that? Like, you know, cause sometimes there's like these random questions. Our kids are always, the one I always feel like I kind of push back on is like, hey, who'd you date before mom? Or like, what did you guys ever, like, did you smoke? Did you drink? Did you do, and you're like, you know, maybe less about me. Let's talk about you. Like, it's like, cause your history is not really on, cause I think it's more confusing that like you could, especially for like a 6 or 7-year-old to know like, there was somebody other than mom? Like, no, you guys were forever, always together, forever, no one else and ever. And it was always like, that gives them a sense of security. They're asking for security in that. Yeah. Right. And so like, you just need to be aware. Like, I've tried to have been like, you know, I want to be honest with you, but like, you're 12. You're not asking that from like back to your, I think that's a great statement, right? Yeah. They don't really need a real answer right there. Now, if you're 20 and you're coming to me and we're having that's a whole nother conversation with mine now. You know, he'll be 20 in October, and he's got
with your 20-year-old, like where babies come from, or
yeah, like we've already had that.
He knows that's
right. Safe space. Yeah, but that's a different conversation with him than it is with a 7-year-old, right?
Yeah,
there's all like understanding the context and understanding the and their ability to really understand, because it's probably more of a curiosity. Like, wait, there was a kid in mom belly and now it's out. Like, wait, what happened? Because she's huge. Yeah, you know, like she's 4 and like, how did that?
Did you walk out?
Yeah, that's right. Did you? And sometimes it's more like more gross. Like, hey, let's watch the Discovery Channel later when we're watching surgeries. If you want to be a doctor, you know, whatever.
That was a great thing that our 6-year-old said after our 4 months ago when he was born, and she came in to meet him and she goes, "Mom, you still look pregnant." Like, and it was kind of like, oh, well,
well, it's,
you know, it'll go down.
Yeah.
Going back to something you said, I don't know if I was just a worried kid, but as a kid's perspective, I remember this very vaguely. I think I was in 3rd grade maybe, and I found out that my dad was married before my mom.
Oh yeah.
And I was worried for days, and I had to ask both my parents as soon as I found out, because my sister, I don't know how we found out, but it was both my mom and my dad, and he was married for like 7 months before my mom. And I'm like, am I your guys'? And I was worried for a couple hours, and I still remember that worry of, first of all, I never knew my dad was married before my mom.
Wow.
Second, I thought I was worried, and they're like, no.
It's all good.
No, he did not have any kids with her. They were only married for 7 months. It's okay.
Right.
But I remember that feeling as a kid. So you can.
That's right.
I mean, you guys are talking about age appropriate questions and making sure that you take it the right distance. And I remember that very, very clearly, of those feelings that I had as a younger guy, just going, man, I didn't even know that, much less I didn't understand any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I think it's you know, when that stuff naturally comes out, it's not like you were hiding or he was hiding anything, right?
Right.
You found out, and I'm hoping he addressed it, but now you know what that felt like to find out stuff, and so when that comes to you, you'll be like, "Oh, I remember how this feels. Let's provide some surety and assurance that Mom and Dad are here, you know, we love you, all this kind of stuff. And so, you know, we want you here. We're committed to each other, all that kind of stuff. Because you remember now.
Yeah, no, that's safety. Just like that feeling that you just talked about. That's that safety just as a kid to be like, oh, okay, you guys do love me. You're there for me. Is such a calming feeling. Because I remember those, as you try to, always constantly remind your kids that you're there for them.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just need that. Like maybe I was just a worried kid. I don't know, but I needed it a lot.
I think that's a reality in that space, like being able to walk through that, like it reassured you. And then, clearly that's where like, and people are going to stay together, not stay together, like all that. And like kids have to walk through so many different complexities that they need a place where they like that felt safety is always sort of present. Yeah. And I think that's where these conversations, like I can go to a trusted adult and I can have my questions answered and all that. And I think that's what we're trying to talk about is like, how do you create that? And dude, you're in your head. I think I've had conversations where I'm like, I don't have any idea what to do right now. Like I'm thinking that in my head, like, I don't know. And I think that's okay. Like you can be freaking out and in your head and also tell your kids that level of vulnerability. Like, hey, look, I don't have a playbook on how to be a parent. Like I've never had a 19-year-old before this. And I've also never had a 4-year-old with like 6 other siblings. Like I've never been here before with her and it's going to be different. And each one is different and each one has different needs. And so you got to create different spaces. So,
and I think what we're getting back to here, that the most important concept is that honesty creates
that's really good.
the availability to have the conversations. Because if you're not going to be honest, then that trust is shattered, right? Because eventually the kids are going to find out that you weren't being trustworthy or truthful with them. That's right. And that's going to have reverberations in future conversations.
This Good Dads podcast is brought to you in part by our generous supporters. This week, we'd like to thank the following: Table Rock Shores, ESC Consulting, Dr. and Mrs. Benji and Lori Lambert, Midmo Bank, Guarantee Bank. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Visit our website at gooddads.com to learn how to contribute to the Good Dads mission. So that leads into our next point, and that is how to handle it when you catch your child in a lie. This is important to start with that honesty and always be honest.
It's
what
so
you're talking
funny
about, Brian.
Because I'm at the stage of life where both my kids are very different. Dorothy will flat out just say things like, "Hey, don't look at me behind my back right now," as she's trying to like sneak something to another room or take a piece of candy. Jack will definitely try to hide it, but he's at the age where it's so easy to catch his lies, because he used to come downstairs before we would get up and he would watch a YouTube video or something. Oh, yeah. And Jessica came down one time and the pantry door was open, the light was on, and she found like a little candy wrapper in the trash, and she walked out and then she goes, "Hey Jack, do you have a piece of candy this morning?" No, I didn't have anything. And she goes, "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm 100% positive." "Well, the pantry light's on and I found this Smarties candy wrapper in the trash." "Oh, candy wrapper." Like he'd been found out.
Did he confess at that point?
Well, then he knew that it was
the jig is up.
Part of me is like, is he filing this away? He's like, okay, next time candy wrapper's got to go into a different space. But
that's so funny.
We always try to tell the kids that you don't necessarily get in trouble for the act or the deed, but if we find out that you're not truthful with mom and dad, that's when we're more upset that you're lying to us than whatever the thing is you've done. Because we can, we all make stupid mistakes, but telling the truth about it is a choice that you're making to like further the problem.
So almost like, come to me if you make a mistake.
Yeah. Yes.
Or
we
if
try
there's
to tell that
wrong or you made a mistake, just come to me. We'll talk about it and we'll kind of get through it.
We have had that exact same conversation. And I had a kid who just would double down. Like everybody knew it. And even the siblings, like all this, he was just that kid. Like they were like, "Oh, he's lying," and we all know it. Everyone knew it in the whole family. It was like he was unaware. And I still to this day, I'm wondering, like, how could we have helped him through that? And I don't know. I don't know if we weren't creating the safe space, or he felt like there was so much shame that was with that. Like if I fail again or I get caught again, all of that is very complicated. And I think to give everyone like listening to this, like, man, if you guys don't know what to do and you're on a podcast, like, because here's the thing, like, it's just like,
Well, we
you
don't know.
We don't know. We're strong. That's what I'm saying. It's
And I don't think we ever claim to. I think this is just a podcast of dad just trying to figure it out.
Yes.
We're navigating. We don't.
Absolutely.
We know as about as you probably know more than us, honestly.
But the fact that you're listening, it's almost like this intentionality. The fact that you're trying to be more intentional means you're already an intentional dad. You're winning.
Yeah.
You know, and like to give yourself grace in that too. Because I still don't like, and the greatest fear is that you're going to mess up your kids, but like give yourself, like, be okay with that. Like, you're not going to mess up your kids, because here's the deal. They always have a choice to be their best version of themselves, or to believe a lie, or to convince themselves of something else. So, you know, we're all on that journey together. I think as long as you're having that open conversation, like, hey, you could have missed it. And I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying, like, it sure looks like you might be, you know, like, I don't know if you want to come. I just remember all the goofy stuff that I was involved with, like with a church youth group or something, or like at school where it's like, if somebody doesn't fess up, we're all going to detention, these kind of group consequences things and all, where it just creates like, it's like a movie. It's like, I don't feel like this is right.
Right.
So, but I don't know what to do.
And fear is such a motivator on that stuff, but you don't want it to be, right? Like, we're not trying to make our kids scared of us, but like sometimes.
Speak for yourself.
All right, don't listen to Jay the whole rest of this podcast. Forget what Jay said.
Sometimes,
Because I want them to be scared to death of me when I walk down the hall.
Sometimes it comes out that way. Let's be honest.
Yep.
But more of that comes from disappointment, because we're like, oh, I'm trying to get you to do the right thing, and I know that you're lying. And so sometimes, you know, I have to tell myself, like, Jack takes the accusation that he might be lying way more personally than Dorothy does. And so understanding their personalities
absolutely
plays into that a lot too, because Jack, the guilt shame kind of motif, it resonates with him. And so when he's been told he's done wrong, or we catch him in a lie, that just shatters him. And so you have to be tender with him, especially when you do catch him. Like, you don't want to be like, Jack, you lied to me. You know, you're going to your room for a week. It's like, hey,
because he's already putting that on himself.
Oh man, so much. And so I say, hey, buddy, you know, we're trying to make good decisions, and you know, it's more important that you're telling us the truth, because we want to always be able to help you. It's not that we're trying to hurt you or make you in trouble. It's we want to help you make the best decisions so that you can be the best person you can be. Yeah. And it's not like we're trying to catch you just because we like getting you in trouble. It's like we're just trying to show you the best way to be you.
Right.
That's really good.
And then, like anything else, like a lot of times, like if our 6-year-old like spills something or accidentally, you know, we'll dump a bunch of Skittles on the floor and just be like, hey, listen, I did this, or I need a towel. And we're like, hey, thank you for letting us know. Here's a towel.
Right.
We'll help you. Like, it was an accident. Like, and also just kind of reinforcement.
Yeah.
You know,
encouraging
like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, this happens.
Encouraging that positive response of them, or the correct response. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's worthwhile, but I still think you got to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because, hey, I'm encouraging you to do that thing because that's the right way Mom and Dad want you to do
It's
that.
the long play. I think what resonated with me when you were talking about the fear, like, fear can get your kids to behave, but if you're not there, they don't know how to regulate themselves. There's no because like what you're saying is, I want you to be the best version of yourself. I want to encourage you. And that's why we're having this conversation. I'm not trying to got you, but in that they're learning how to do that on their own. And so hopefully as dads, we're helping we're a guide and not, you know, just an authority. Sometimes you got to yell, hey, don't watch out the street. You don't go in the street. There's maybe more severe consequences for safety than there is for like, hey man, like breakfast, like let's eat an egg and then maybe grab a donut, right? Rather than like eating, you know, you ate all your Smarties, you know, in the first hour you woke up and now you're not hungry and then you're sugar high and you're bouncing off the wall and all those other things. Yeah. But like that's a great example. 3
hours to go to bed.
Yeah. Now you're like, yes.
All right, guys, is there any closing thoughts we have on creating a safe space for honest conversations?
No, I think what Jason said is great too. If you can model that honesty with your spouse or your partner, you know, that's going to be easier for you to be honest with your kids because that's already happening in a natural way. Yeah. And really that kind of stuff, you know,
they can see it.
I'm a big believer. I don't believe in trickle-down economics, but believe in trickle-down emotions. And so if
Sure.
we can
That's good.
teach kids that this is the right way to respond to things and these are how you have conversations, that's going to come down to them and they're going to see and do those things that they've seen modeled by mom and dad.
Yeah, I'll end with this. I think sometimes you have to be the adult to where you're going to have to say things like I got in the car with my 15-year-old and he's got this friend and I just said, "Hey, did you hold her hand yet?" Right? Like, and I want to open the door that like, I don't know where they are with that, but like that's going to be a conversation we're going to keep having from 15, 16, 17. Like now you're on your own, you're driving in a car. You're like, I know that's coming because I've been in that other relationship, and just to keep that door open, but it feels awkward because they're like, "Dad, don't talk about it." Like, no. And it's like, well, it seems like you might have, because I saw, and like you're not calling them out. You're kind of calling them up into that space. And sometimes it's just awkward.
Yeah.
And, my wife is like the king. She'll just say things like, if you look at porn, your brain will rot out. And they're like, what?
Wow, I went to 0 to 100 real quick,
it's like,
Mom.
wow, she does. She's like, and I'm like,
We were just talking about holding hands.
But she goes there deep. And I think sometimes it's like, it makes it sort of feel like shock value. And it's like, hey, I know people are going to have that. And like, you have that conversation with a 10-year-old, it feels different, but like at some point, like you want them to be aware of the things that are happening. They're going to feel like I'm abnormal and I'm the only one that's experiencing this, but it's in the context of it. Everyone's dealing with that. And it's usually why your friend's showing you something that is making them uncomfortable and they're trying to
figure it out.
Yeah. They're trying to figure it
at
out.
The same age. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
And so like making sure that space is open, like, hey, let's talk about physical relationships. Let's talk about these other challenges that are out there. So,
very good. Yep. Brian Mattson from the Downtown Church, thank you so much. And Jason Hynson, from Victory Mission, thank you so much. Intentional Dad, we appreciate you guys. Yeah.